Jai Hind, Brigadier Hemant Mahajan welcomes you to Facebook Live on threats to India's coastal security, maritime security, and analysis of what can be done. Last time when we met, we had talked about history of India's coastal and maritime security. I want to take this opportunity to thank the CHMES Society for giving me an opportunity to speak to august audience of students, teachers, parents, and all well-wishers of CHMES Society. I also want to thank Bhosla Military College for giving me an opportunity to speak to bright students. I, of course, want to thank Kamri, that is Kanoji Angre Maritime Research Institute, which is doing a research on India's coastal security, India's maritime security, India's blue economy, etc. So therefore, a lot of research work is being done in this institution, and we hope that the state, the country will benefit by the collective action by all, that is the CHMES Society, the Bhosla Military College, and of course Kamri. The subject that I'm going to talk to you today is threat to India's coastal security. Now, very briefly, I will touch upon the threats and then I will talk about them in more detail in the later part of my presentation. I will, of course, also talk on some of the latest aspects that are taking place in the India's maritime domain. We live today in the exciting times, and almost every day something or the other is happening. I will just mention three important events that have occurred ever since our last meeting. Uh, India held what is called as Maritime India Summit 2021. It was held on 3rd and 4th of March, that is this month only, in which nearly CEOs from 100 companies world over participated in that. There were about 25 countries which were represented. What happened in the summit and how it will help India to improve its blue economy, I will talk in more details slightly later. We will, of course, talk on quadrilateral cooperation because a quadrilateral summit was held just last week in which four heads of state, that is Shri Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, Joe Biden, President of United States of America, Prime Minister of Japan, and Prime Minister Scott Morrison of Australia took part in a virtual meeting and they decided on the quadrilateral cooperation. Quadrilateral cooperation simply means it's a cooperation of the countries which are located in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. It is generally referred to as Indo-Pacific. These are the countries on the outside of these two great oceans. This ocean is facing a lot of threat in the recent uh, uh, past, present, and of course in the future. And the biggest threat to people in this region is China and its maritime expansion in South China Sea, in the East Sea, in Indian Ocean, and in many places. We'll talk about it in more detail in the later part. Also, there are two other aspects I would like to speak about. China's aggressive behavior in the South China Sea. China has started there of what is called as the fishing militia. What is fishing militia means? It simply means that the fishing community in China, in the garb of fishing, intrudes into the waters of the neighboring countries. As I had mentioned to you earlier, also the laws of seas is very, very clear. It says from your coastline up to 12 nautical miles, the sea belongs to you, that particular country, and the laws of land is applicable there. Up to 200 nautical miles from the coastline is the sea which belongs to uh, the country only from the point of view of economic aspects, but the other countries have a right to travel in that for any things such as trade and commerce, meaning anybody can enter into the exclusive economic zone of any other country or extended exclusive economic zone of that country without asking their permission. However, China is claiming now that the whole of South China Sea belongs to them. Some strategists look at it as a problem. I look at it as a big opportunity because it is good that China's aggressive behavior in South China Sea has united the countries in that region against China, and it gives tremendous opportunity to India to improve its economic relations with these countries, improve military relations, improve strategic cooperation, improve intelligence cooperation, and so on and so forth. So it is not a threat, but it's a tremendous opportunity for India to get into the Southeast Asian nations, into the South China Sea, and improve its economic prospects. I will come down to the quadrilateral cooperation in a very brief manner. Four countries met, we have spoken about it. Now, what is the exact cooperation that is going to take place with these four countries which met at the virtual summit? One, of course, is strategic cooperation. It has not been said so in so many words, but let us be very clear that it's an alliance against China. There should be no doubt in nobody's mind that it's an alliance against China. It is not only a military alliance, but it's an economic alliance. It's an alliance in the field of intelligence, meaning these countries will share intelligence with regard to China's aggressive activities with each other. It's an alliance also to decouple their economies from China. Today, China has got done so much of deep infiltration into the economies of USA, into the economy of Australia, Japan, etc., that every country, people there have started thinking that it is not possible for them to survive without China. It is very much possible. In India, we have started a program called Atmanirbhar Bharat, and Atmanirbhar Bharat, ever since 5th of May, has achieved a fair amount of success. I will give you only two examples because of lack of time. One is that we were net importers of various arms and ammunition from the big countries. But now today, our dependence on arms and ammunition from outside is reducing, and India is becoming an exporter of arms and ammunition to the rest of the world. Last year, we have exported arms and ammunition to at least about 20 countries, and today we rank 24th in the order of exporting nations as far as arms and ammunition is concerned. It is a very good news simply because it helps India to grow, India to prosper, India's public sector undertakings to improve their efficiency, bring down their cost so that the cost of weapons which is required by India also comes down. For example, just to give you an example, if a BrahMos missile, India orders 100 BrahMos missiles, if it's going to cost you about, let's say, 100 crore per missile. If you export missiles to Vietnam, to Philippines, to some other Southeast Asian countries, then the cost of BrahMos missile may come down from 100 crores to 70 crores or 80 crores, which is good. We will get more benefits for our economy, and we will be able to develop our own military capabilities at a much lesser price. So exports of arms and ammunition to the neighboring countries, especially to the friendly countries, is a very important aspect of ensuring that we improve our defenses and offensive posture. Now, not only the countries, quadrilateral cooperation countries are going to cooperate with each other in terms of technology, they will cutting edge technology like artificial intelligence, like Internet of Things are becoming very, very powerful. We will cooperate with each other so that our technological standards improve. Today, China is at number two as far as technology is concerned. Obviously, number one country or technological superpower in the world is, of course, firstly USA, then China, then Japan, then European Union, and India is very low in terms of technology. We need to at least come up in the first five in next 4 to 5 years. This is exactly what is going to be achieved by quadrilateral cooperation. I will give you one specific example, that is of drones. You are aware that drones are those small aircraft which are pilotless. They fly without a pilot, and they have a range right from 200 kilometers to 2000 kilometers. They can carry a payload from 10 kgs to 200, 250, 300, even 800 kgs, etc. So it's a very powerful weapon system. Now we are cooperating with America and Israel on all these issues. So therefore, quadrilateral cooperation is good for our economic cooperation, for defense cooperation, for technological cooperation, for strategic cooperation, for intelligence cooperation, and also it may act as a military alliance should a conventional war ever break out. Though of course China is scared of the Indian army, and I have mentioned it number of times in my talks that it will never resort to a conventional war with the Indian army simply because they are scared of the Indian army. And we gave them a bloody nose in the Battle of Galwan, in which we lost 20 soldiers, but more than 70 Chinese soldiers were killed. So China is worried. Therefore, instead of doing military operations against India, it is engaging India into other hybrid operations such as cyber warfare, such as technological attacks, such as political warfare, diplomatic warfare, etc. We will continue to talk about these issues in the days to come. Okay. Now I spoke very briefly about the quadrilateral cooperation. I will now talk in more details as far as the Maritime Summit, Maritime India Summit 2021. Now we are becoming a leading blue economy in the world. What is blue economy? We have heard of green economy, that is what we grow on the land. Blue economy is by using the sea resources that belong to us, letting our economy grow. For example, what is that we can get from the sea? Of course, what is known to everybody is fishing. Today, India is the third largest as far as fishing is concerned. However, we are not exploiting our fishing resources properly. Just to give you two specific examples, while there's a fishing famine on the coast of Maharashtra and on the western coast, simply because of overfishing, because of pollution, and because of many other reasons, there is a fishing in abundance in the two island territories that we have, that is the Lakshadweep and the Minicoy Islands, which are there in the Arabian Ocean, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which belong to our country in the Bay of Bengal. Just to give you an example, it is said that Andaman and Nicobar Islands is the only place in the world where fish die because of old age. I am sure all of us know that fish or chicken does not die of old age, but it is caught by somebody and eaten much before. However, it is important that India directs its fishing effort towards Andaman and Nicobar Islands, towards Lakshadweep Islands, into the deep sea, so that we are able to develop our economy properly. Now, that is exactly what is going to be achieved by the blue economy. Second aspect of the blue economy are the waterways. Today, we have a large number of bigger rivers which are there. We have 7,600 kilometers of the coastline. However, the coastal traffic of merchant vessels is very less. Now that is growing up in a big way. Just to give you an example, in a city of Pune, where I live, there's a place called Chakad. from where about 1.5 lakh cars, motor cars, are exported to Bangladesh every year. In earlier days, it used to travel from Pune by various roads to Bangladesh. You can draw a map and see how tedious process it was, and it was a very costly process. Now what we are doing is these motor cars in containers are moved from Pune to Mumbai Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust. It is loaded in a ship there, and by ship it is landed up at Chittagong port of Bangladesh, and thereafter it is ferried to wherever it is supposed to be. To tell you very briefly, the cost of transportation is the highest along the road. It becomes lower when it comes to rail traffic, and it is the lowest as far as the rivers are concerned or as far as the sea is concerned. You can transport the same amount of load by sea at one fourth of the cost. So that makes your economy very, very efficient. And this is exactly what we want to achieve by increasing our coastal trade. We also want to increase our trade by utilizing our rivers such as Ganges and the Brahmaputra. Not only that, our rivers thereafter Ganges and Brahmaputra flow into Bangladesh. Now, if you use the waters these rivers via Bangladesh, we can reach our northeast India in a much easier and a much cheaper manner. So this is exactly what we are trying by improving our river water transportation capability. It will ensure that things become cheaper and economy prospers. Indian ports used to be a big bottleneck earlier, meaning if a ship came to a port of let's say Mumbai for unloading the stuff, it used to take 7 days. Now it is with this time of 7 days has been reduced to 2 days. In fact, I am told by some experts that it has been reduced now to 1 day. Imagine if a port was taking 7 days to unload a ship, how wasteful it will be in terms of freights in front of money that you have to pay. If you take a hire a taxi and keep it waiting for 7 hours, how costly it is. While if you do it much faster, obviously it is more cost effective. So Indian ports have become very efficient now under the Sagarmala project, and things have improved. So both inland cargo and cargoes going outwards, loading and unloading of ships in the Indian ports has increased, and our 12 ports and another about 200 plus non-major ports are doing a good job. We have integrated these ports with our coastal economic zone. We have port-based smart cities. We know that quite a few of our major cities are located on the coastline. Mumbai, Chennai, Cochin, then Visakhapatnam, Calcutta, etc. Can Mumbai transport its stuff from the sea? Yes, very much possible. And this is exactly what is happening under the Sagarmala project. So now we are building up mega ports which are world class as far as efficiency is concerned. We are developing infrastructure, and we have what is called as the multimodal project, under which stuff and goods which come from the sea gets transported to big containers on the land, and by the fastest means it is delivered at its destination. So this is happening now in a much more efficient manner. We have developing infrastructure, we are developing navigational aids, we have good information system, we have a transport grid for regional connectivity, especially with Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Myanmar. This will ensure that our economy grows at a faster speed. The maritime infrastructure growth is always very good for the countries. So these kind of things are being developed. We have nearly 189 lighthouses. We have started what is called as the lighthouse tourism. Some of you who would have traveled on the coastline would have seen when you climb up on the top of a lighthouse, it gives you a beautiful view of the sea, because lighthouses are always located in an area from where you can see 30 to 40 kilometers of sea on the either side. So lighthouse tourism is doing a very good job. And not only that, for urban transportation, transportation from sea, especially for Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, is going to improve its efficiency. Our fishing industry is also being improved. We, even though we have a 7,600 kilometers of the coastline, our shipping industry was never up to the mark. Now, with the help of South Korean firms, etc., the shipping industry is doing a reasonable job. In fact, as it was brought out in the India Maritime Summit 2021, that nearly 2.25 lakh crores is going to be invested into the India's maritime domain in the days to come. So all the countries around have a tremendous potential as far as the economic growth is concerned. Port-led growth will help India to become more efficient economy, and government is focusing in a big way on this. We have also involved in a big way into the ship breaking industry, call it as the recycling industry. So this is also, you must have seen, there are places like Alang located on the Gujarat coast which are doing a very good job, except that the industry has to become more efficient, and so that we can earn more money out of that. We have developed, we have written a policy called India's Maritime Focus as far as year 2030 is concerned, and it lays down a pathway on which India is going to grow. Now, very briefly, I'll talk about threats which exist even now to India's coastal security, and I'll also talk about as to what else can we do to improve our security environment in a better manner. What are the threats to India's maritime domain? The threats can be classified into two parts. One is the external domain, and second is the internal domain. As far as external threats are concerned, China's ships, battleships, submarines, etc., coming, but that threat is not going to come up in a big way. Conventional war is not on the horizon right now. Pakistan's navy is also scared of entering the Indian water. However, what is possible from the external side is basically a 26/11 kind of an attack which took place about 12 years back, in which 10 terrorists came from the seaside, landed up at Kulaba, and held India's economic capital of Mumbai for ransom for nearly 3 days. Now, we need to keep a tag on Pakistan's potential of developing maritime terrorists. In fact, the best maritime terrorist was born in India, that is Daud Ibrahim. He is called as the biggest maritime terrorist ever produced by the world. So, therefore, we need to have our intelligence up to the mark. We need to keep a watch on Pakistan's capability for a maritime terrorist attack as it took place, which took place in the year in 2008, 26/11 to be precise. And we need to also keep a tag of what Pakistan can do on our other coast. There are other issues uh, which are like the crime at sea. Lot of times a ship is stopped en route. Some people get onto the merchant ship and steal things from them. Crime is also rampant when they enter the Indian ports. Another big issue is smuggling. If one reads newspapers, will find that we have caught drugs worth nearly 200 crores on the Bombay coastline in last 1 year. Smuggling of narcotics is very rampant on the sea. Gold is also smuggled from the sea. As far as smuggling of arms and ammunition is concerned, it is at an all-time low, but that threat cannot be ruled away. As far as infiltration of terrorists is concerned, Pakistan is scared that should it infiltrate terrorists from the sea, then we will carry out another surgical strike. So therefore, it is restricted itself to reviving terrorism in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. However, we need to be alive as far as maritime domain is concerned. Then there is another threat to the security called the piracy. The pirates were coming nearer the coast, but because of world uniting and also carrying out maritime patrols to ships, which are also which passed from near Africa and other places, Malacca for that matter. This threat has reduced now. However, pirates, we need to have an up-to-date intelligence on piracy, which is prevalent in the Strait of Malacca, on the Horn of Africa, etc. Because that is still that is a threat as far as the Indian shipping industry is concerned. The next threat is left-wing extremism or Maoism or Naxalism or left-wing terrorism. What is happening as far as Naxals are concerned is well known to you. They cause damages worth hundreds of crores to the country's economy every year. They keep on attacking police and so-called supporters of the security forces. However, the biggest problem as far as they are concerned is availability of ammunition and explosives. Now, unfortunately, as far as arms and ammunition to the Nakshals or the Maoists are concerned, arms is not a problem because if you have a weapon, it can be used for next 25 to 30 years. However, as far as ammunition is concerned, once an ammunition is fired, it cannot be recycled. And the Nakshals or the Maoists have not been able to manufacture ammunition inside the jungle area. So therefore, the maritime domain is important for them, and a lot of ammunition and arms are smuggled to them from the Andhra Pradesh coast. So we need to guard the Andhra Pradesh coast properly. Second issue is the illegal Bangladeshi migration to our country. There are 4 to 5 crore Bangladeshis who are inside our country. How they come by the land routes is well documented. It is reported regularly in the media, but they are also using the sea to infiltrate into the inside the state of West Bengal, and they have flooded the coastlines of Orissa with their infiltration. So therefore, we need to guard the coastline. So the Indian Navy, the Coast Guard, the coastal police of the states of West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, and other state of that is Tamil Nadu have to be on their toes to ensure that infiltration from the sea is kept to minimum. Then the next challenge that we face are basically the drugs. A lot of drugs come from the sea. A lot of times fake Indian currency notes also come. And there are three critical areas as far as these things are the threats are concerned. These areas are firstly the Sir Creek area, which is located in the area of Rann of Kutch or in the state of Gujarat, from where these kind of threats are rampant. Second area is the Pak Bay, that is the sea between India and Sri Lanka. Lot of terrorists and their supporters use this area of Pak Bay to infiltrate into India. And third area, of course, is the area of Sundarbans. Sundarban is an area where Ganges and Brahmaputra they enter Bangladesh, and from there they ultimately reach the sea that is the Bay of Bengal. The deltaic area which is formed there is called the Sundarban. This area is full of problems as far as national security is concerned, both in terms of law and order, infiltration of Bangladeshis, and maritime crimes, etc. So we need to guard it properly. There's a water border outpost of the Border Security Force, which is located in this area. There's a floating BOPs, floating border outpost of the uh, Border Security Force is also located near the area of Rann of Kutch or in the area of Sir Creek, but they have not been able to stop the infiltration which takes place. A lot of infiltration has been reported by the local media. You read the newspapers of West Bengal, Gujarat, basically the coastal states, and you'll find out as to what kind of problems are taking place there. We need to improve our actionable intelligence. The Navy has to improve its actionable intelligence. The Coast Guard has to improve its actionable intelligence. The coastal police have to improve their actionable intelligence. As far as the border security force is concerned, in the area of Sarkari and Sundarbans, they have to improve their actionable intelligence because resources of security are always going to fall short. If you improve our intelligence, then maybe we'll be able to reduce these kind of threats. I think it's time for me to stop now. If there are any questions, you can always send. My email is available. You can put your questions on the on the chat box of these of various Bosla institutions and send it to me. If not now, I will always be very happy to answer your questions. And what is more important is that all of us must pool our brain power together and say as to how India can benefit much better as far as the maritime domain is concerned. We should not think of only defensive actions. We should think as to what innovative ideas we can use by pulling our own brain power so that our country prospers in the maritime domain. So I'm sure you are going to share some of your bright ideas with me. I can find few people who have written here. Shri Milind Padewarkar has put his comment there. Thank you, Milinji. And I'm sure all of you who are, there are a large number of people who are watching this program live. So I'll request all of you to share the link of the video when it gets ended with as many people as possible, because we are all our information warriors. We are all our cyber warriors to protect our cyber boundaries in all the fields. So please like the page. Please share the videos with as many people as possible. I'll stop here. Jai Hind.